All right. All right. Cool.
Found someone new now. I have more room, no more formats to chain me. On the same page, we are effortless, schemaless, living in the future, you and me, made for us, serverless, living in the future of the clouds.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's workshop, Building Your First App with JavaScript and Node.js. I'm Ryan Welford. I'll be your host, and I'm joined here by David Gilardi. Hello, David.
Hello. Hello, Ryan. How are you all doing?
I am
Or how
doing
are you doing?
well. I'm
How are
doing
you all
well.
doing? How are you doing?
Yeah. If you guys can hear us and see us just fine, give us a thumbs up in the chat so we can make sure that everything is working well. All right, Murad, hello. Looks like it sounds good to
Hello,
you.
Arun and Olga. Hello. Cool. I see. It looks like folks can hear us. That's wonderful. By the way, for all
Perfect.
you who are asking about how do you get the badge and stuff, we are totally going to tell you that as we get into the session.
Definitely. Yes. So, as I said, I'm Ryan Welford, and this is David, and we are developer advocates here at DataStax. But it's not just us on this workshop. We have a whole host of people in the chat that are ready to answer your questions. And this is not a comprehensive list. I think this is an old slide. Oh, bummer. There's a couple people missing from this list, but yes, there's a whole
Yeah,
team
we
that
need to
is
increase the folks.
yeah, that is in the chat and ready to answer your questions. So feel free to ask your questions in the YouTube chat, and we will be sure to get to them. To get started, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. So we are live on YouTube, and we are also live on Twitch, but we use Twitch kind of as a backup in case YouTube has any connection issues or whatnot. So that's always a backup. We don't really watch the chat there, so we don't really we can't really see the questions that come up in there because we're not monitoring that very closely. So if you have questions, you can ask in the YouTube chat where we are much more active. You can also join our Discord. You see the link there on the screen. We'll get that in the chat as well. But a Discord is a growing community of people who are looking to learn more about Apache Cassandra and DataStax Astra. And it is, I forget how many people, 18,000, something crazy. And that is kind of where you can continue to ask questions and get help and just kind of, be a part of a growing community as well. All right, another thing that we're going to use today is called menti.com. We are going to have a game at the end of this workshop today where you will have a chance to win some swag. It'll be a quiz, and we'll use menti.com to do that. We'll have more details when we get to that point, and how to log on and stuff. It'll be a lot of fun. All right. So some of the things that we'll be using, tools that we'll be using to do the hands-on portion of today's workshop. So we're going to be using GitHub for our workshop. All of our code and repository is there. We'll be running through. There's a whole README that we'll be running through, and that will walk you through step by step. If you get behind or a little lost, most of the questions that you have will be answered by that repo. And the link to that will be in the chat here in just a second. And if you need the link later, if you forget it, you can type !GitHub, and our new Nightbot, which we're testing out today, will give you the link, and you can head over there. So yeah, that's where all the content is going to be. If you get lost or behind or have any questions, check there first and make sure that it's not already answered there. But feel free to ask the question in the chat as well. We're also going
Oh,
to
and
be
I saw
using...
Mayank just did the GitHub thing. Oh, and there it goes. Cool.
Look at that.
Wait, like Ryan just said, this is the first time we're using Nightbot. This is something we just added in here, and that was really cool to see that work. So now, if you need a GitHub link, you can just bang GitHub and get it yourself. That's awesome.
Yep. So Gitpod is a cloud-based IDE that we're going to be using in this workshop to run our app. It is based on VS Code, so if you're familiar with that, you'll be very comfortable. But it is cloud-based, which means that we don't have to rely on installing anything. We can just spin up this environment directly from GitHub, from the GitHub repo, and all of our stuff is already there. So it's going to be really easy to use. And we'll walk you through how to use that. One thing to note is I think Firefox and Chrome are the ideal browsers. They work right out of the box.
Yes.
If you're using Brave or Safari or something, it'll still work, but it might need a little workaround. And we can help you with that if that's the browsers that you prefer to use. Astra DB is the database that we'll be using today. It is a cloud-based database based on Apache Cassandra, which is a NoSQL distributed database. It is very powerful. It also contains a data layer called Stargate that allows us to use various different APIs in order to interact with our database. We'll be using the REST API today, but it also provides things like Document API and GraphQL, and it makes it very versatile and very powerful. And that's what we'll be using today. We'll be walking you through setting up accounts with Astra. It is completely free. There is no credit card needed to sign up at all. You get $25 credit every single month to use, which is more than enough to run even a small to medium-sized business. So we'll walk you through that. But that is the database that we'll be using today. Nikesh, if you are using VS Code, if you're working locally, you are absolutely welcome to do so. Some of the things that we run in the Gitpod are pre-populated and pre-installed. So you're kind of on your own with making sure those things are installed. All of the details are listed in the GitHub repo, so you should be able to get it up and running locally if that is what you want. Okay. So, without further ado, if there are... Oh, Bhaskar, I think is asking me to slow down. I will try to slow down. Sorry, sometimes we have a lot of content to get through today, and sometimes that's in the back of my mind and I tend to rush a little bit. So can you share the Astra DB link? Yes, I can. And you can as well. If you type !Astra, it'll bring up the link. But yeah, the link is also in the GitHub repo as well. Okay. Is it possible to work with IntelliJ? I'm sure it is. You are kind of on your own with making sure that that works, though. We can't really troubleshoot every possible scenario. We're trying to give you a streamlined environment so that we can get through it. All right, so let's get into our content, unless there are some questions that we need to answer. Jabir asked about Menti. We're going to be doing the Menti quiz at the end. And we'll get the code and the QR code for that when we start doing that. We do not have to install Gitpod as cloud-based. Yep, go ahead.
And just one thing I want to address, Akash asked, will we have to install Gitpod? No, it's completely cloud-based. So once we get into the exercises, we'll bring it to the GitHub repo and you're going to launch it right out of there. So you don't actually have to install it or anything like that. One other question that I've been seeing coming through a lot regarding like certifications or something like that. There is no certification for the workshop. However, you can earn yourself a badge, right? I think Ryan, I think we talked about those at the end of this one. Yeah, you can earn yourself a badge though. So if you do the homework, you'll see it in the repo. We will point it out to you. Then once you complete and we review your homework, you'll get a badge. You can share it up on LinkedIn and everything, and it shows that you've gone through the material, you got bragging rights, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they're really cool. We've given out hundreds, if not close to 1,000 badges already. Okay, so we have a lot of content to get through, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Feel free to ask questions, and David will interrupt me.
Gladly.
When we need to answer them.
You anytime I get a chance.
So we're going to go over Application 101. So this series, or this workshop, I should say, is definitely geared towards beginners. So if you're a beginner, you are you are right at home. If you have experience already with some of this stuff, stick around. I'm sure that a refresher is always good, and we'll be building on top of this stuff. But we just want to lay a foundation so that everyone is kind of at the same point of understanding, and then we can build on top of it. So this might be a refresher for you. You might know all this stuff already. That is okay. So what is an application? We're going to go right down to basics. Well, there's a couple different flavors of applications that we consider. There's the mobile applications and there are desktop applications. These are what we'd probably call native applications, right? A native mobile app is something for iOS probably written in Swift, for Android probably written in Java or Kotlin. And these are, the apps that you would get in the App Store and download them to your device and run it. Desktop applications, are from the Windows Store or from other app stores. And they are, coded in many different languages, right? And these are kind of the most recognizable forms of applications. But we can put these in a SWOT chart, a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats chart. And for native applications, the biggest strengths are performance, right? You're going to be have access to the low-level system resources so that you can have as much performance as possible. A lot of the languages that you use to write, especially desktop applications, are very performant. And you can have extended features that tie into some of the system-level capabilities as well. The weaknesses are there is dedicated languages and platforms, right? So if you're making a native iOS app, you're writing in Swift, right? And you can't, make a Swift app work in Android, and you're tied to the iOS platform. And if you want to make an Android app, you have to make another, make a duplicate project and write in Java or Kotlin. And there's also the required installation, right? You need your users to download this app and install it, and there's some overhead there as well. The opportunities, kind of tie into the strengths. Native integration, you get a lot more capabilities when you're, natively integrated into the OS, and they can be smoother in their usage and a little bit more of a native feel, right? People maybe feel more comfortable using native apps. But with threats, especially when you're maintaining multiple different versions of these apps, for different environments, different OSs and whatnot, you definitely get into some security headaches and versioning headaches and all these things that kind of make your job a little bit more difficult. So as a alternative to native apps, we have web apps, right? Web application development. And the rationale for web apps is to kind of give us an opportunity to break ourselves off from relying on one specific language for one specific platform and be able to maintain one code base for multiple different platforms, right? You don't need users to download or install it. It's available on the web all the time. You just use a browser as your interface. And that makes web applications very flexible at the cost, of course, of some performance and useful features that native applications would have. But if your app doesn't require those, then web application might be the way to go. So this is the basic architecture of a web application, right? You have your client, which is a browser, right? You have your mobile browsers if it's if you're using a mobile device. You have your web browsers, any flavor of that, which most of them are now Chromium anyway. And you have what's called a progressive application, which is basically a web application that can be stored locally and used locally rather than needing to connect to the server all the time. And then you have the front end, the presentation tier, right? And this is what the server serves up to the browser, to the client, for you to interact with, right? So this is your typical web technologies, and which is your HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Those are the kind of the big three that have kind of made modern web interactivity possible. And then you have your application to your back end, right? And so this is all the services that you need to develop to make your front end work, right? It's going to call functions in the back end through APIs that will do some work on the server and then send it back to the front end, right? A lot of times it's data retrieval. Sometimes it's heavier workloads that you don't want to run on the front end. Anything that you want to keep secure and not exposed to the public needs to be the run on the back end so that it's not uploaded to the front end where everyone can see it. And then you have your data layer, which is all your data storage, your databases, file system, all that long-term data storage that you need to keep. So that is the basic architecture. That's the stack. All right. Cool. Looking for any questions? Doesn't look like
we're good.
there's...
We're good on the
Okay.
questions then. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we'll talk about the front end, the presentation tier, right? We're going to go through these three, pretty much everything but the client, right? We know clients. Those are browsers. We're familiar with them. We don't have to deal with them too much. So let's talk about the front end. So this is our front end. This is what the web server is going to serve up to us. This is our UI, right? Our UI UX part of the experience. And like I said, the three major tools that have been used, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, have made this all possible. So HTML, what is HTML? It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is a markup language. It is not a programming language, as some people say, but it is used for creating web pages. It's XML based. It is structured using tags. So elements are defined by using tags, which are, as you can see, these the title, or the head brackets, the title brackets, and then you have page title, and then you have the closing tag, right? So that defines that element is a title. And then you have, there are structure-based tags, the head, the body. You have page formatting, paragraphs, divisions, text formatting. You can have some basic styling, if you will, and then some other useful tags for defining, whether it's an image or a link or whatnot. So this is how the early web always looked. I remember making my first web page. It looked almost exactly like this. It was pretty bad. But this is how you build the structure of your web page, right? And the browsers will know what to do with this and lay it out the page as you want. The next step is actually I can show that. So we're gonna be building a to-do app today. I guess I didn't really specify what kind of app. We were just saying our first app. So we're gonna do a basic to-do app. And we have a little code pen here, and I'm going to show off that this is basic HTML. This is just HTML for making a basic to-do app, right? So we have our all of our tags here, and in this form tag, we have an input, and we can define what kind of type it is. It's a text, right? We give it an ID, and then we have a placeholder, which is enter your value, and you can type whatever you want in here, right? And then I should type an actual word. Hello, world. Typical. Nothing happens, right? It actually fails because there's actually no real interaction. All of this is hard coded, right? We have our list element with our different items, task 1, task 2, task 3. But I can type whatever I want in here and nothing actually happens, right? There's no logic to this at all. Because all it is a bunch of tags, and it, we have a tag for input that allows us to type in something, but it doesn't know what to do with that, right? So that is our basic HTML to-do app, which is pretty much useless. All right, next technology is CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets.
Ryan, can you make when you go to the
Yes.
code pen next time? Can you make that a little bit bigger? Zoom in a little bit.
I can't.
And by the way, while he is doing that, just so you all know,
Sorry.
zoom tight, Ryan. Even though Ryan is going to show you the code pens and kind of walk through the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript components, all of these are actually provided in the repo itself. So we're not having you do those with us along today. But if you want to experiment yourself, then you can find all those in the repo. And when we go to the exercises, I'll point those out. So you can do everything that Ryan is doing and kind of get a little playtime.
Thank you to everyone who said bless you.
I just know that.
I pretty much sneeze every workshop. I normally can get to the mute button before that happens. It came so fast. All right.
You know, it's funny, Ryan, is now that you pointed that out, I think you're right. I think you
Every
sneeze
time.
every workshop.
Every time. I'm allergic to these.
That's awesome.
Okay. Thank you for the blessings. All right, CSS, cascading style sheets. This is how we style our web pages. As you can see, in this example, it's very simple. It's just text. It's a white background. The input is plain and simple. There's no styling here. CSS allows us to style pretty easily, right? Some people might argue that because it's way different than most languages, but it's pretty powerful. So the way that it works is that we can there's multiple selectors that you can use in your style sheet to affect your page. So for example, if you use the P tag or selector, as you can see in the example to the right, this is going to style every single paragraph tag. So the paragraph tag is the tag with just the letter P. Every single paragraph tag that shows up on your page will be styled in this way, right? All of these styles will apply to it. You can set the font, you can set the size, you can set the color, backgrounds, borders, all sorts of different things. But then you can also create classes. So p.test will create a class for the paragraph tag that if you include that class in the tag, it will inherit those styles. But if it doesn't include that class, it will not inherit those styles. So you can get pretty granular with what styles apply to which components or which tags. And then you can also use some selectors for IDs. So, we showed that there was an ID property that you could add to tags. And you can use those to just have certain styles as well. So if you have, an input tag, you can style that a certain way everywhere. But maybe an input with a certain ID has a different type of style. And you can use they're cascading style sheets. So you can actually have multiple style sheets. You can kind of have this hierarchy of inheritance so that you can kind of break up your styles in a very logical way, which is pretty cool. It also supports animations, which is cool. You can do some keyframe animations, slide in, slide out, fade in, all sorts of different things. It's pretty powerful and pretty useful. So to show this.
Oh, hey, Ryan, there's a great question from Keith. Are these styles browser independent or agnostic? And that is totally, and it depends. I'd say the vast majority, I want to say 95% of the styles in CSS are browser agnostic.
Yes.
But there are some special, maybe 95% is a little high, but there are some special ones that are going to be browser specific.
Yeah, most of the basic CSS stuff will be completely browser independent. It'll work across browsers. Some of the more complicated things like animations and some of the, when you get into responsiveness where elements are resizing themselves based on the browser window, I've definitely experienced some browsers like Safari will be really weird about it. So there are ways to basically detect, in CSS you can specify if it's this browser, do this. If it's any other browser, do this. So there are ways to work around it. You'd think that after all these years it would be more standardized, but yeah, I would agree 95% of the CSS styles are browser independent. Animation are since CSS3. I don't know for sure, but probably. That sounds right.
Yeah, there were some rudimentary animations, but I want to, maybe it was 3 on. Yeah, I don't remember exactly on that one either.
All right. So as you can see in this code pen, we have our HTML, which I believe is exactly the same, right? We have our list with tasks, and now we have some CSS. which is styling our page to look like this. And let me make this a little bit bigger. So this is the
Now, going
same
back to a
HTML.
question. Now,
Sorry,
going
go
back to a question from earlier, with regard to the styles, somebody asked, could you color? Can you do some of the stuff directly in HTML, right? And you can to a degree. You can in fact have inline styles and things like that. You can do some stuff directly in HTML, but honestly, at this point in today's day and age, CSS would be the way to go without a doubt. It's doing it directly in HTML is going to be very limited in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. There is a slight shift, David, in some of the React and stuff to use CSS in JS. So you're not actually using CSS; you're using JavaScript to do it, which I prefer. But that's getting a little advanced. But yeah, CSS is the widely regarded standard as how to do that. It'll make your life easier because you can reuse these styles over and over again without having to rewrite them, which is always nice. So this is the same exact HTML page with some styles applied to it to make it look much different, right? It has some interactivity, right? So when I hover over this task, it brings up click to complete. I'm clicking and it doesn't do anything because there's no actual interactivity. I can still type in a message, and it fails because there's no logic behind it. But the styles are there, right? We have that next layer. Can you maximize? I have it really big already. This is as big as I can go. Okay, so we go back to this. Our final component is JavaScript. This is where we get all of our actual functionality, our actual logic in our little applet here. So JavaScript is a programming language. It's our first programming language in this stack. And it works with what's called the DOM, the Document Object Model. So the HTML elements are objects in this case. And then there's properties of the elements, which are, the ID and the styles and whatnot. And the DOM provides methods to access all the HTML elements and access all of the events for the HTML elements. So when you enter input, when you click a button, when you do any kind of interaction with the page, there are the DOM will provide JavaScript with access to those events. And you can define JavaScript inside HTML code with a script tag. You can also embed it in the header so that it runs every time the page loads. But you can also use it as, or have it as a external JavaScript file and import it later, which is probably the preferred method, just organization wise. And it can do a lot of things. It can change content of an HTML element, an attribute. It can change the style of an element, and it can listen to the events and trigger logic on those events. So,
something real quick, Ryan. I just want to address real fast. From God Crito. I'm sorry if I just totally butchered the name there. The question though is, I didn't get concept of a web application. That's why I asked an example for a web application. So all the stuff that, and Alex is answering it as well, right? Pretty much anything you might open in a browser is an example of a web application. Even what Ryan was doing a moment ago in that code pen, where you saw him modifying some HTML, some CSS, and then you could see there on the bottom this basic to-do list. That's a web application, right? So pretty much anything that is built to run in HTML in any of the browsers at all, that's a web app.
It's a pretty broad definition. We're pretty much well past the days where there are not web applications. Anything outside of a static about us page, which is just text to read, would be considered a web application because there's some interactivity in there, even if it's as simple as just a form to enter your information or whatnot. It is pretty broad and can vary from the simple to the very complicated. Facebook, it's a huge web application, right? Okay. So let's take our little to-do applet and inject some JavaScript into it and actually make it, semi-functional. So again, same HTML basis, same CSS styles. We're just adding some JavaScript to give us some logic. I'm not going to go in depth on this JavaScript. I'm just going to show what it allows us to do. So first thing is I can now click to complete and we get this checkbox, and I can click it again to delete and it removes it, right? So the JavaScript is changing the style. It's adjusting this asterisk to be a check mark. It's also changing the text that comes up when we hover over it. And then when we click it, it removes it from the list. And then I can also add an item to our list. It takes whatever content I added to that input and adds it to our list, right? And then I can also click to complete that and click to delete. So the JavaScript is actually giving us some interactivity, actually, functionality behind this. Zamir says, I think you're running late. Yeah, probably. Now, if I refresh this page, though, all of our tasks are back. And even if I entered a new thing, it would be gone. So because we're not actually storing any of this information long term, right? We need a database for that, which is kind of one of the next parts that we're going to talk about is, yes, it's great that we have interactivity here, but if we want any of this information, any of this like manipulation to the page to be stored long term, we have to have a database, and that can either be a local database in browser or an external database, which is what we're going to be using for with Astra DB. But this is basic JavaScript. It's injecting information into the DOM, the document object model, which changes what the page shows us. Now, some people will say, hey, I can type document.getElementById .inner HTML, which will select a certain element and give it a value of OK. And I know JavaScript. Not quite. You have a very basic understanding of how you can manipulate a web page with JavaScript, but JavaScript is actually quite more powerful than that. And there has been a lot of stuff built with JavaScript in this environment, in this web application environment, that is going to be very useful. So, frameworks. Don't reinvent the wheel is kind of our advice. There are a lot of different frameworks out there that will give you a jump start into using JavaScript, HTML, CSS to give you a jump start in consistent styles, consistent components, JavaScript components that will give you functionality that you don't have to rewrite everything. There are HTML layouts, making sure that you can build responsive sites, that conform to whatever screen size you're using. Because now with mobile devices being the large majority of web traffic, you want to make sure that it's as usable on a mobile device as it is on a desktop. And this is just a few, like a small selection of different examples of frameworks. Bootstrap is a very, very popular one. Tailwind CSS is a pretty popular CSS framework, which just gives you like a library of styles that you can use without having to hand code everything. All right, so that brings us to NodeJS. And now NodeJS is a JavaScript runtime environment that executes JavaScript code outside of a browser. It gives you a JavaScript environment that allows you to do things that are much wider than the browser environment would give you, right? Node.js can generate dynamic page content. It can do some file system commands like opening, closing files, reading, writing on the server side. You can collect form data and modify it. And it can communicate with a database and do all the CRUD operations for your database. NPM is a package manager that allows you to install different libraries, JavaScript libraries. Again, don't reinvent the wheel. Use what has already come before you and utilize them to your to however you need to get your result that you want. And then there's something called npx, which is called Node. It's a Node package runner. It allows you to execute some of these libraries that will help get you jump started in creating like your first basic app, which we can talk about. So with that, and then React.js is a front-end framework. Now, some of you might have heard of React. Some of you might be very familiar with React. And actually, I'm going to ask a question. We're going to try a poll. This is our first time doing a poll, so we're going to do a poll. And the poll is basically, do you want a React refresher, kind of React basics on how to get started with React? You may not be familiar with React, and so if you want to go over the basics of getting a React app up and running, head to the straw poll that is now linked in the chat and answer. If you already know React and don't feel like you need a refresher, then go ahead and answer accordingly. I see a lot of people answering in chat. I see a lot of yeses, so it's probably going to be. Head to the link,
like,
straw
yeah.
poll link. Yeah, it looks like yeah. We'll probably do it anyway. But I'd like to see the poll work too. I'm gonna get the results anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'll just talk about React for those of you who don't know what it is as a basis. So React is a JavaScript library.
Dark saying over in Discord saying no. The only. Oh wait, I see a couple no's. Okay, a lot of yes. Yeah, I am curious to see what the poll does though, Ryan.
Yeah, it's the first time using a poll. Busy dev. If we could just copy the dev from your brains and copy it to my brain, I'd love that. Okay, so React is a JavaScript library. It was originally created by Facebook. It is a user interface framework. It is a tool for building UI components and composing them into a web application using only JavaScript. We're actually moving away from the three technology structure with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And we're moving into an environment, a development environment where we're just using JavaScript. With a caveat, there is some HTML that we'll get into, and there are CSS styles that you can use. But we're primarily focusing now on JavaScript, which is actually really useful to be working in a single language. One of the biggest pains in web development in the past is you had front end, you had an HTML markup language that you had to be familiar with, CSS that you had to be familiar with, JavaScript that you had to be familiar with, PHP if you were working, that was the server code that you were using mostly back in the day. A bunch of different languages that had their own idiosyncrasies and styles of development. So this simplifies things. We can just use one language and it's consistent throughout, and it's really really useful. So it takes the place of, actually this is the wrong slide. So we have a demo that we can do, which goes over the basics of React. So I'm going to take a look at the poll results. I see a lot of yeses in the YouTube chat though too.
Oh yeah, you're gonna show it? Let's see.
It should show it in the chat.
Oh, so we have to go to the link to see the results? Oh, I see.
It
Cool.
pops it up. All right, so 55 yeses, 2 no's, and a lot of yeses in the YouTube chat. I think we're gonna have to do it, David.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, so we're going to go over the basics of React. Now, why did we go over HTML, CSS, and JavaScript when we're just going to use React? Well, it's that foundation thing. You kind of need to know the foundation technologies, and then it'll build on top of that, right? So with that, let me find my. Okay.
Hey Ryan, what did you use for the poll? What was that? Where did that come from? Damian is asking. Or is it Damien? Is asking.
So this Nightbot has it all built in. And I just created a poll. And it generated a straw poll, and then it generated the link, or it gave the link for the poll. So it's a Nightbot feature. And then the results, it's just another Nightbot feature. Actually, I think polls are built into the YouTube chat too, which there's a button for me at the bottom that I could do it just in YouTube, but okay. So I'm going to do this as a demo.
Oh, Damien. Got it.
I am going to copy this repo link in the chat. But I'm going to do this as a demo, just in the interest of time. So I recommend just watching and learning. If you want to follow along and do it yourself, as I'm doing it, you are welcome to. I will try not to go too fast, but there is a time constraint as well. So I gave the repo. You can go there.
And let me just point out as well, because a lot of folks have been asking. You'll see the links that Ryan just dropped there. That's going directly to this. Now, the CodePen links, all that kind of stuff, we're going to be dropping those as we go through it. Everything that, if you do that bang GitHub, everything that we are going to go through today is in that GitHub repo, right? So this is the Create React app he's doing, the CodePen stuff, the exercises, everything is there. So if you do want access to it, bang GitHub or exclamation point GitHub in the YouTube chat.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so this is going to be mostly a demo. If you want to follow along, you can. We do have this GitHub button here. You can open this repo in GitHub. It's really just a blank repo. So if you want to work locally too, it's just open a folder. That's all it is. But if you want a cloud-based IDE, if you're on like a Chromebook or something, you can open Gitpod here and it'll just open a fresh environment. But I'm just going to go through this and we're going to learn some React. And you'll see how cool it is. I love React. It makes life really easy. All right. So we're going to be using a tool called Create React App. Now, what Create React App does is it sets up a basic boilerplate React app that you can actually run right away. It has all the basic libraries that you need to run React. Obviously, React. It has a Webpack library that kind of allows you to build the app with hot reload and stuff, so you can develop on it quickly. We don't have to get into details on that, but it has a bunch of different libraries, helper libraries, to help you develop quickly. And the way we do that is we're going to run this command, npx, which remember is the node package runner, which allows you to run executable things from the npm repository or library, package manager. And we're going to run create React app, and we're going to name our app. So I'm going to just name it my app, just something simple. Now this has to be done in a empty folder with nothing else in it because, oh, actually it's creating a new folder. This will be fine. Sometimes you create the React app in the same folder that you're running. Forget I said that. All right, so I'm just going to run this. I might need to make this window bigger. So this is just going to, it's going to take just a little bit. It's going to pull all the basic libraries that it needs and set up all the files and make sure to see them pop in here. And we'll get it running. This welcome page, oh, this one right here. So this is the page, I'm answering Wolf Blitzer. This is the boilerplate app that we're going to have in the end when we finish this Create React app. Can you please zoom in? I'll zoom in one more time. I have some screen real estate issues. I can make this smaller. So it is, if you use the Create React app tool, this window is the boilerplate basic app that you'll get right away. Zamir, can we create small games like Snake, Tic-Tac-Toe? Yeah, absolutely. I saw another question earlier. Can you make games? You can make games in React for sure. Wolf Blitzer, so you have preloaded libraries. I will show you what the libraries are. It's
You beat me to him, Ryan.
Computer Man, if you're lost, don't worry. Just watch and try and glean as much as possible. If you have specific questions, feel free to ask them. We have lots of people ready to answer.
And don't forget that this session's recorded, and all of the content that we are going to go through today, all the exercises, It's all self-service, it's on the repo, and it's actually there for you for the homework. So you can totally step through it at your own pace. We've hopefully done a good job of explaining all the steps and everything in the repo. So if it is going a little fast, obviously we're moving along. I would say take the time to go through the content on your own and get your badge, earn the homework, or do the homework and earn your badge. That's what I meant to say.
A couple questions that I see. Do we have to download React? So if you want to work locally, you can. You can also run this Gitpod environment, which means it'll be running in the cloud. Nothing is installed on your computer. But when you run this Create React app, it is downloading the React library. You're not technically installing it. You're downloading the library that is used to run React. And why are we using npx? This is the fastest way to get a React app up and running is using Create React app, and the npx is what allows us to run this executable called Create React app. Okay, so in the answer to where are all the libraries that it downloads are in Node modules. Get ready. Still going. Still going.
A lot of folks are saying that they're getting the thing where it says the term npx is not recognized as the name of a commandlet function. Isn't that based off the version of Node you have installed?
Oh
wait, we're doing this from Gitpod though. Yeah.
If you're using Gitpod, everything should work. I'm assuming that you're working locally. Yeah. You might not have you might not have Node installed or npm installed. Yeah. You do need those installed to work locally. This is why we use Gitpod. It makes it much more streamlined.
Yeah. So Abhishek and others, if you're getting that npx is not recognized, the question I have for you: are you running in Gitpod with us, or are you doing this locally? That's the key difference there. Yeah. Yeah. If you are doing this locally and you're getting that, and you want to get to where Ryan is, make sure I'll drop the link again. Make sure that you are going to the repo, because there will be a big opening Gitpod button right there at the start. Oh, someone beat me to it. Yep. Yeah, make sure you go into the repo and you click that opening Gitpod button. That should load up the environment and everything for you. Yeah, Abhishek said I was doing it locally. So yeah, that means you probably need to install Node and such to get that, or just do it in Gitpod for now. And a trick, I don't know, Ryan, do we have a Gitpod YAML in this one, or no?
I don't think we do actually. Yeah, it's completely blank. So the terminal might not open. There's a hamburger menu on the left side. You can open terminal with that. I know someone was asking about that, which I guess you will need to do if you're using Gitpod. Basically what Gitpod is, it's a cloud-based IDE. It's VS Code in the cloud, basically. And it allows us to pre-install some stuff as well, like NPM and stuff. And it's all in the cloud environment. It's not on your local machine at all. Okay. So now that I've installed it, I'm going to run this command, which just moves my directory where I'm running commands to my app, because I need to do everything else within that context. And now I'm going to run npm start right away. I haven't changed anything. I just made this new React app. I'm going to run npm start. And this is going to start this boilerplate app. It'll automatically open a window. In Gitpod, it should open a preview window. And there we go. And this is, very basic. Just their logo and some text here. Lisa, exclamation point Gitpod is actually not a command. You can do exclamation point GitHub to get the repo if that's what you want. Okay, so now we have our basic app up and running. And you can see this message, edit source/app.js and save to reload. So we can actually make changes. So if we go there, drop down source and go to our app.js. So this is the file, our main app file. And you can see the content here, right? So I can actually change this content right away. Let's see if I can get this. Okay, so if I change this text, right? I just say hello world. and I save it, it automatically refreshes the page and updates the content. So this is super useful to develop and see your changes live, right? There's no compiling, there's no, you know, build process. It's called hot reload. And so I can make any changes I want to this to this page using in this app.js file, and I'll see it immediately on the left. Am I using any extensions for VS Code? Not really actively. I have Prettier installed, but I don't really use it that much. Nothing. VS Code out of the box should be able to do this. It might ask you if you want like a React extension. I don't have a recommendation one way or the other. Okay, so we can actually do a few other things. Let's get rid of this link. The A tag is for a link. We're going to get rid of that. And we changed to hello world, so I can save this as well. And you can see that all it is the logo with the hello world. I'm actually going to, just because I have space issues, move my instructions off to another side. If you're following along in the GitHub, hopefully you'll be able to follow without it being on screen. But I have too many things open right now. So we're going to talk about components. The cool thing about React is it breaks everything down into components. In fact, this app, right, our app.js, this right here is what's called a component in React world. It's technically also a page. It's the app page. But everything is a component all the way down. And you can break components into smaller subcomponents until you get to like the smallest. You have a button, right? Just a single button, which is a component. And once you have that component, you can reuse it everywhere. And so it kind of very logically breaks down your application. So let's make our first component. So we're going to create a new folder in source, and we're going to call it components. Organization is important. So let's start with good organization. And then we're going to create a new file. And I'm just using the VS Code buttons for making these new files. I know some people like to use the command line. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to call this list.js. So some naming conventions, capitalize your components names. You know, it's just a convention. And we're going to do, we're going to create our first component. And I'm going to do this manually at first. I'm not going to copy things over because I want to kind of walk through the initial setup. So the first thing that we do is we're going to import React from React. So this is basically importing the React library and all of its functionality, right? And then we're going to define a function called list, right? That's our name, the name of our component. We have our empty parentheses for no, because we have no parameters at the moment. And all it's going to do is return something, right? And then we have to export our component so that we can use it in other files, right? So this is a self-contained file, and if we want to use it somewhere else, we have to export it. So we're going to export the default list. So this is basically saying that if we import anything from this file, the default export is going to be our list function. Okay, so this is our basic component. All it's doing is returning something. So we're going to, if we're making a to-do app, let's think about this a little bit. We're going to have a list of items, and we want to display that list of items, right? That's what we created a list component. So let's just get ourselves a array of items. So I'm creating a constant called item list, and it's just going to be an array. And these are going to be, I'm actually going to copy this out of the thing just in the interest of time. These are going to be just items to do things, right? As if we had typed them in and added them. So we have 3 to-dos. We have get milk. We're going to buy Amazon. And then we're going to take over the world. It's important to build up to the hard things in life. So that's why I have it in this order. But I think it's doable for sure. And so now we have this array, and we're going to return this array as a list. So we're just going to display it as a list in HTML. And so the way we're going to do that is, I'm actually just going to, is this. Now, if you're not that familiar with JavaScript or some of the built-in components, this function right here, map, is basically a built-in array, built-in function for arrays. So we have our array item list, which is our three strings or three texts, and map is a built-in function for arrays. And what it's going to do is for every item within the array, right? We're going to call that, give that a name item, a variable name item. It's going to do this to it, right? And all this is doing is wrapping that item, which will be first get milk, in paragraph tags. These are the HTML. This is where HTML comes in React. We are using HTML, but this is where we define it in our return statements of our components. So for each item in our array, we're going to take that value and wrap it in paragraph tags. That's all this does. So regardless of how long our array is, it's going to do that for every single one, and it's just going to list them out, right? So we're going to save this component. And that is our very first component. But now we actually have to import this into our app file and use it. So the way we do that is I'm just going to import list from, and then we have to navigate to components and then list. It auto completes. That's what's nice about IDEs. It has some auto completion. So now we're importing that component from that file. That's why we had to export it. And now I can use it anywhere I want. So I'm actually going to get rid of our paragraph tags here.
Now, a couple questions that have come up, Ryan.
Yes.
Since you're right in the middle of trying to explain that. Orlando is asking, do we need to include the arrow functions?
Yes. For the most part, yes. I don't have an example. Oh, this arrow function.
Yeah, it was a little behind. Yeah. So
yeah, you're addressing something that if we were talking about a more advanced React course, we would get into. But yeah, arrow functions are very common with working with React. So technically you could write this without an arrow function. But it would be much more verbose and would not really give you any benefit at all. All this is doing.
Oh, and okay.
Did you have a
sorry?
He
said he said not there on line 3 is what I was asking about.
Line 3. Line 3. I don't have it. I don't have arrow functions.
The array? Yeah. I wonder if I guess it depends on which file we're talking.
Yeah, I don't have arrow. This is the only arrow function here. So that's the one I...
Should it be list arrow on line 3? That's what he's asking about.
So this is not...
Oh, that line 3, yes. Right.
So this is... It's not an arrow function, but it is a function. So this is called functional components, where everything is a function. There is another way to do things with class-based components if you wanted to. React is kind of moving towards functional components nowadays, though. Both are completely acceptable. But this is technically not an arrow function. It would be an arrow function if I had the arrow there, right? But that would be different. A lot of people might format this as an arrow function, and it's perfectly acceptable. You don't have to, though. This is fine. So I guess I don't really know how to answer your question. So I apologize.
No, it's not missing. Right, it's not missing. That's valid as well.
Yeah, if you're asking if it should have been an arrow function, in this case, no. You could write this differently. You could do const list, I guess equals, like that would be an arrow function. It would be the same basically. But in this case, I did not do that. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
sorry to throw you off your flow
No,
there, Ryan.
it's okay. I was a little confused. Okay, so we've imported the component into our app.js, and we're now using it. And we're using it as if it were a HTML element, as right. We're using this tag format, and this is how we use a component. And so we're just going to use it right after our image. And so if I save this, you can see that we now have our list. Get milk by Amazon, take over the world. It's taking each of those elements in that array and printed them out using paragraph text. Summary, it is a beginner course. I guess the main background that is a little expected is some base knowledge of JavaScript, because I'm not doing JavaScript basics. So that would probably be the only expected background. If you have any specific questions of where you're confused or lost, feel free to ask those in the chat. I know I'm kind of going quickly. We have a lot to get through, and this is kind of just supposed to be a refresher as well. Or I guess not necessarily a refresher, because there's a lot of people who maybe aren't familiar with React, but kind of a foundational knowledge.
Yeah, and you know what I'll do? The React documentation itself, their page is actually quite good. So let me go ahead and get that, and I can provide that to folks as well. Because I think for some of the questions that I'm seeing that are coming in here, this isn't going to go into like the depth of React or whatever. We're kind of covering all the bases, as Ryan was just saying, and kind of building up to an app. So let me get you some resources on some of the stuff that you can kind of dig into.
Wolf Blitzer, if you're trying to run, I don't know when you're getting that error, but make sure that you change your directory to the actual project directory, because if you're at the folder above, it's gonna fail probably. That's my assumption of what happened. Why import and not require? We're using ES6 syntax in this, rather than, I guess, ES5. Which allows us to just do import export rather than confusing required. Nick Tax, yeah, you need to get Node for sure. Again, Gitpod is the streamlined way to do everything. All of the prerequisites are pre-installed in the Gitpod, and it's in the cloud. So if you're doing it locally, you make sure you have Node, make sure you have npm. Everything should work then. Okay. So I'm just gonna move on. What is the use of default in the export line? So if I were to import, so I'll just give a really quick example. So if I were to export list, that's actually not going to work. So I could actually, because I'm by default exporting list, that means I can import, I can name this anything. I can say, hey, from components.list, and it's still going to get the same, it's going to get this function here. And I could just call this hey, and it would work. Because by default, it's going to import this. So I don't have to name it I don't have to name it specifically. But I mean, that's confusing. So I'm just going to keep it list. So that's what default does. And I think you always need a default. There's probably another way to do it where you don't always have to do a default. There are definitely ways to import specific modules though. Okay. Yes, you can create mobile apps with this. React Native is what you would want to use. We have a workshop on that actually. That's converting.
Yeah, I'll drop that one actually.
React web app to a React Native web app, which is cool. All right, I'm gonna move on because we have a lot to get through. We're gonna talk about props. So, props are it's short for properties. We can actually, when we call this component here, this list component, we can include properties that it can then use to change its behavior. So in our list component, This is not very dynamic, right? We have a hard-coded item list that's never going to change, but we can change that. We're actually going to first we're going to import, or we're going to, for one of our parameters, we're going to define props, just to say that we are going to use whatever props are given to us. We're going to now use them, and then instead of this array, which I'm just going to cut, we're going to, there's some syntax changes that we have to do. We're going to do this. So basically what this is doing is it is granting us access to a variable that is passed in our props, in our properties, right? So this is the parameter that's coming through. Any property that's called item list, we're giving ourselves access to. So when we call this, so it's going to break because I haven't actually imported it yet. So when we call this component, we can include a property called item list. And the formatting is wrong because I need brackets around it. Oops. So we're defining a property called item list, and we're defining it as this array, right? This array that I cut from the other file. And so now we're passing this array, not hard coding it in the list component, but we're passing it in as a property in the app level, on the parent component level. And so this allows us to be more dynamic, right? We can now reuse this list component and add, you know, whatever array that we want. So if I add another instance of this component and I pass in an item list of get bread and get eggs, and I save this, now those are added automatically, right? I can now reuse this component for a bunch of different lists of strings, and it will work the same way. Okay, so that's what properties are. Very useful, very key to how React works. And now our component, our list component, is dynamic, right? We can pass whatever we want in, and it will continue to work, and we can reuse it elsewhere. But we can actually go deeper because this is not as broken down as it possibly can be, right? We can actually break this out into a subcomponent, and we can create an item component. So I'm actually going to create a new file here. I'm going to call it item.js. I'm copying this out of GitHub, just in the interest of time. So now we have, this is super simple. We're looking for a property called item, and all we're doing is we're wrapping that value in a paragraph tag, and that's all it does. And now we can use this in our list component, right? We're going to import item from the item file. And now instead of just wrapping the thing in the tag here, we can call the component. And that's what it looks like. A lot of items in a row. But this is the component that we're using, item. This is the property that we're passing in, right? Item, the component is expecting a property called item. And then this is the item of the specific element of the array that we're working with, that we're passing in. And so if we save that, nothing should change because everything is essentially the same, but we're using it, we've broken it out into different components. Now, why would we do that if it's just doing the same thing? Is now we can do some more granular, we have more granular control over this specific component, right? This individual item component. And one of the things that we can do is we can set some styles and some behavior for events like mouse overs or hover events. So I'm going to just copy in this new stuff. So we're now wrapping the property item in this same paragraph tag, but we have a few events. Now these are HTML events. So on mouse over, we're going to call a certain function, and then on mouse out, when we moved our mouse away from it, we're going to call another event. And the effect is going to be setting the background to red and then setting the background to nothing, to empty. And we actually have, and I'll get into this in a little bit. We have a state here, which holds our value for the background, and we're changing that state every time the mouse moves in and out. And so the effect that has is, if I save this, now if I hover over each item, the background turns red. And so we had to break it out into individual components, individual item components, to be able to have granular control over each individual item here. Okay. Do I need a break for any questions, David?
I think we're pretty much okay. I do see there's a discussion here about SVGs and stuff like that, but I don't think there are outward questions that you need to answer. Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. So another thing that we can do, we are making a to-do app after all, is we can add checkboxes to our elements, right? So every single item is going to receive a checkbox as part of its layout, right? So we have this input, the type is checkbox, and we have another state of is checked, set is checked. Basically, this just initializes the checkbox as not checked, and then if you check it, it will get checked. So this allows us to have more control over each individual item. Okay, so we are running behind. So I'm not going to go over state, but if you want to go through that GitHub repo, and where at the end, step 5 will go into details of what this is, of what the state is, and how to use that. It's really useful. It's really important. But this is kind of the basics of the React infrastructure and how everything's broken down into components and how you can pass information to components using properties. That is kind of your jumping off point. I would really encourage you guys to go through the rest of it. There's only one more step that talks about state, but this is kind of the completion of our basics. So I know if you're coming in completely fresh, like without even a background in JavaScript, this can be kind of overwhelming. Once you sit down and kind of break it down, it is actually pretty simple, and you'll do just fine. So Shruti, yeah, if you go to the link that David just sent, it'll walk you through how to get this code. Actually, you'll make this code.
Yeah. And
okay.
as a matter of fact, this what Ryan just did here as well is actually part of the homework, right? So
yes.
Whether or not you want to earn a badge or not or something, we really suggest to go take a look at this, especially if you're new to React, and kind of step through and just work through this, because it's really going to help solidify what you're learning and kind of going through the paces. But again, this is part of the homework. So if you're going to do that to earn your badge, you're going to have to go through this on your own anyway.
Okay. Hopefully that kind of gave a refresher to everyone, or a foundation to everyone for how React works. I think it'll be enough to understand the actual to-do app from our repo, and how we're going to use it. Erkin John, sorry if I butchered your name. It helped. It says it actually helped me a lot. Good. I'm very glad. Okay. Let's talk about our next tier, databases, right? We talked about how, we can have this interactivity with the application, but if that information isn't stored anywhere, it's just every time the page refreshes, it's going to go away. So we need a database to store that for long-term usage. So this is our fourth layer here. It's our data layer, and we're going to be using Astra DB for our database today. When we spin up our to-do app, we're going to connect it to that database and be able to use our app and actually have that information stored long term. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to David, who's going to walk us through getting our Astra instance set up.
Right. Now this, oh yeah, hey Orlando. I'm glad you think this is the good part, right? I'll admit I'm one of those people who I've coded backend, front end. I've been an a DBA and such like that, and so I kind of have lived throughout all the parts of the lifecycle and application development. I actually do think one of the most satisfying parts and aspects of application development is when you get the end-to-end plumbing hooked up from your application through to the back-end layer, and you're actually doing things and you have a real app. So that's what we're going to focus on now. So notice the link again. I'm going to do that bang GitHub in the YouTube chat. I just did another one there, and bang is an exclamation point if you didn't know that. To get the link, right? You should hopefully be seeing this page here. In particular, we want to go to step 1. Log in or register to Astra DB and create the database. Yeah, Orlando, exactly. Yes, getting it end to end is where it's at. Exactly. I mean, you can have so much fun developing an application locally and using like, local memory and such like that. But once you get that end to end thing going, you hook up to a real database and you start really getting going. I don't know. That's just fun. I find it very satisfying. Okay, so come with here if you're going to follow along. Again, go to the repo. I did scroll down a little bit. By the way, for some of those who have been curious about the homework and everything, notice that there is a homework section in here, right? You see this big homework section. So for those who want to earn the badge and stuff, you just go to the homework section, follow the steps, and you'll see this last one with this link. That's going to show you. You just click on that. That's how you submit your homework, right? So that's all you need to do. And what's really cool is what Ryan was just showing you is right here. It's step 2, right? So that is, you're going to have to go through that for the homework anyway. All right. So we want to go down to step 1 here. Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing. Where this says demo, these are the code pens. So the code pens that he was showing in the very beginning, that's what these are. That's what these links are. Okay, so follow me down to step 1, log in or register to Astra DB and create database. Now, you're going to notice throughout this, as I go through it, there'll be buttons like this, create Astra DB. Unfortunately, Markdown does not let us target blank. So when you click on this, it's not going to just launch into a new tab. So what you're going to want to do is either right click and say open link in a new tab, or middle click or control click or command click, whatever OS you're in, but you want to put that in a new tab, right? And this is going to bring you to the Astra signup. So I'll just bring this over here and get rid of the one I had. Now, everything, Astra is totally free. This is our database. This is what we're going to use for our database in the back end. If you're brand new to Astra, you can sign up with GitHub or Google, or just create a account with your own credentials. It's up to you. And again, this is totally free from that standpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. Now, when you first come in, the first time, once you've registered, it should just take a moment. You should come to a screen that looks something like this, right? You'll see these create database button, things like that. It'll have a section here say create your first database or whatever. So you want to get here, okay? You want to get here, and once you get to the screen, I'll give everybody a moment to get registered. Like I said, it's all free. You'll want to hit create database. So I want you to get here. You should see something like this. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know you're here with me. And you can just follow on in the instructions, right? I'll start doing this. I'll do it again. So I'll do it one time. Just give us a thumbs up. Let us know you're here. Now, I mentioned this is where we're creating a database, right? So notice this first field is database name. So for this case, and you want to use the values we provided here, by the way, for this workshop to make sure we're all on the same page. So I'm going to start with my database name. It's going to be my to-dos workshop because we're creating the backend database for our to-dos app. Cool. I'm seeing some come in. Awesome. Yes, Astra DB is free, Shruti. Yeah, you'll notice that it says that the tier is free. With the free tier, it's like millions of reads and writes, 40 gigs of storage. You can absolutely use this for development, prototyping, greenfield, production workloads. Even small production workloads will still stay in the free tier. You'll never be charged anything unless you upgrade explicitly and put in your credit card and stuff. So yeah, it's all free. Okay, so awesome. Yes, I'm seeing lots of thumbs up. Great. So you can just keep going on. I'm going to explain. So we're going to put in our database name and then the key space. All the key space is the container of our tables, right? So for our to-dos app, usually the key space name should have some relevance to the domain of our application. So this is a to-do app. I'm going to call a key space, create a key space called to-dos. All of our tables for our to-dos app will be here. Then notice in the bottom, you have a provider and a region. Again, all of this is being showed in the instructions and such. You can choose any of the 3 major cloud providers. It doesn't matter. You don't need an account with those. You don't need to log into those. You don't get charged separately. This is all being handled by Astra. This is really about flexibility, right? So today I'll pick AWS, and I'm in North America, and I'll pick the East because I'm in the East Coast. Once I've done that, you'll see my Create Database button lights up. I'll click that, and that is going to create my database. And then once I've done that, I'm going to come back to a screen that looks like this dashboard. Notice down here, I have this to-dos workshop DB. It's in pending. So if you see you're in pending or initializing, you're good. All right. At that point, you're good to move on. We'll just give that a second. Right now, this is actually spinning up a 3-node cluster in Cassandra. Now, if you're like, wait a minute, what's Cassandra? What are you talking about and stuff? We're not going into those details here. We do actually have, if Alex or Ryan or someone can drop it, an intro to Cassandra to give you more, more of an idea what that is. The thing to take away is that the database here, Cassandra, which is being used, is the same database as being used by Netflix, by Apple, by Spotify, by Uber, by all sorts of big players. So we're getting a real data layer here, right? But the key thing is once you get to pending or initializing like this, you're good. And then we can move on to step 2. All right, let me take a look. How are we in the chat? Yes, Ajay, you can do the React homework using a local machine. But the part that we're doing right now is explicitly there to set you up with a Cassandra database and use Astra and such like that. So this part of it, while you could do in memory local, this part does require that you are using Astra. Let's see. Okay. All right. So the next thing we want to do here is go to step 2 and create a token. Now, what's this about? Well, if you think about it, when we're creating a database up in the cloud, like we are here, then we want to ensure that that machine or those machines aren't just accessible to everybody, because cloud instances are going to be publicly accessible. They need to have some kind of authentication layer, and that's exactly what the security token is for. So what you want to do, there's one of a couple ways you can do this. My database just went live. So you can either use the ellipsis on the right side. If I click on that, you'll see generate a token. That's one way to do it. And again, notice I'm middle clicking or I'm right clicking saying open in a new tab. Or up on the left-hand side in the current organization, I have this drop down. I can click that, go to organization settings. Again, I'm going to middle click. Both of these are going to bring me to the same place, right? I want to go to token management. And then once I've gone there, you'll see I've got this role. Now, for today's case, just pick database administrator, right? You'll see that there's a whole set of roles here and stuff, but we're just going to make it easy. Pick database administrator, say generate token. Now, at this point, you want to leave this up because we're going to use this in just a moment. But it's also important. Notice this download token details button. Click that button, download your details. Here's why. The second that you navigate away from this page, all of these are going to go away. And this is for security reasons. You're not going to be able to get these back. You need to download these token details to ensure you can use it later, right? But for now, that's why I put this in a new tab. Just leave these up, and we're going to use them here in a second. All right, so if you've gotten to the point where you've created your token and you have a database, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you're with us. Let's see Rahul there. Cool. Give everyone a moment. Oh, thumbs down. Does that mean Poke? Are you not there yet? If that's what you mean, let me know. Yeah, I'll give you a moment. Oh, Jason, do you need me to go back over through another spot? Here. Yeah, if anybody needs me to repeat something, feel free to let me know, okay? And just to be sure, as I see these thumbs up and stuff coming in, I see some dapping and everything like that. Where we are, if you go to the GitHub repo, if it still says pending, that's fine. We'll just, if the database isn't up and it's still pending or initializing, you can still create your token and you can still move on. Yeah. The role is database administrator. Yep. Yeah, so Jason, what we're doing, because I just saw your comment there, is we're going to the repo here. Let me drop this real quick. Go use this in the chat, Jason. Go to bang GitHub like I just gave you. and then go to step 1 here in the repo, log in and register to Astra DB. Oh, you just need the token. Okay, I'll do that one more time. One of two ways on your database in the dashboard here, all the way to the right, you see this ellipsis. Click that. You should have a generate a token. Again, open that in a new tab. Or you can go to the organization up here in the top left, go to organization settings. I'm doing the same thing where I'm putting in a new tab just to make it easy. In both cases, you're going to end up where you want to click on token management, and that's where you get your token. All right, hopefully that gave it to folks who needed to catch up. Okay, wonderful. All right, so this next part. Now, some folks were asking earlier, right, if we're going to do anything with APIs, right? And that's where we're going to talk a little bit about a REST API. So one of the things that you get in Astra are a set of APIs, REST being one of them, and APIs being application programming interfaces. These are really the ways, and I know we haven't talked about that part yet in the slides, Ryan. We can go back to it. These are essentially the ways that in application development that we use to talk to other things, right? So if I have my application and I want to talk to, say, a database, or if I want to talk to another website or something like that, I may expose a REST service, or I may use GraphQL, or I might use gRPC, or I might use all these different ways you can communicate with them. But really what they're about is to try to give like nice, clear interfaces that make communicating with other things easy, right? Now, what's cool is Astra provides a whole set of these APIs right out of the gate. So if you click with your database, if you click on the database itself, and you'll see here, you have this Connect tab, right? So if you go to the Connect tab, there's a whole set of APIs that are here. You'll see Document, GraphQL, and REST. Now, today we're going to focus on REST. If you're not familiar with REST APIs, you're going to see one kind of in action in here in a moment. And just, to kind of compare, if you went in times past, we had other APIs like SOAP, was one that was widely used, it's still actually used to some degree and everything like that. But a lot of the times it required you to say download libraries, or you'd have to have the classes from the thing that you're trying to talk to, things like that. And eventually came APIs like REST that essentially absolve the need of any of that. So now I can use these REST endpoints to get data, change data, update things, insert things, do CRUD operations, create, read, update, and delete type operations against a database like this. So what's cool here is that Astra just provides these for you right out of the gate. So click on REST API, and then you see this launching Swagger UI. There's a link here. This is your Swagger endpoint. Open that in a new tab. This is actually going to be, this is for you. This is generated for your database. Okay. All right, so hopefully you're with me at the Swagger API. Now, what I want to point out is notice all of this stuff. What is this stuff about, right? Actually, I'm going to go to data here. What are all these? These are REST endpoints. So what this means is right now, from our database, I have a whole set of endpoints that I can actually use to access data, or to, say, create a table or add a row or read rows or whatever. I can delete things. So I have all these operations, and notice how each of these, I have a different type, right? Get, put, delete, post. These are the different types of operations that I can perform, right? So this is an example. This is a REST API, or a set of actually REST APIs that have been exposed from our database for our application to talk to. Now, before, when you were watching Ryan, and we're working with that to-do app, right? Any of the to-dos and stuff, that was all local in-memory stuff. That wasn't talking to an external data source. In this case, we're going to hook up a to-do app to the external data source, our database here, Astra. And so that's where these are going to come into play. All right, so here's what we want to do. Let's see. First one is go to schemas. Now, again, I'm following the instructions, step 3B here, and I want to go to schemas. Now, specifically, I want to create a table, right? So what I want to do is under schemas, now take note, you'll see there's V1 and V2. In all cases, we're going to be using the V2 versions, right? So I want to create a table under schemas and V2. Okay, that looks out column. My bad. Where's create a table? Create a table, create a table. around here somewhere. There it is. Okay, so it's down towards the end of the list. Create a table. I'm going to open this up. All right. Now, and what's cool about Swagger, Swagger is not the REST endpoints themselves. Swagger is actually just a tool that exposes all the REST endpoints and gives you this nice kind of web app that you can use to explore them. So what I want to do is I want to try it out. Notice I clicked on the try it out button that was over there on the right. And then remember that token that we got a moment ago? This one that says token. I want to copy this. There's a little copy widget right here. And I'm going to put that into this extra standard token. This is how I'm authenticating. This is how I'm telling when I go to exercise or execute something on my REST endpoint, this is how I'm going to authenticate against it so it can actually talk to my database. Now, for the rest of the stuff here, we give the values that, if you remember the key space, we created that earlier, was to-dos. And then we're just copying, we're literally copying the content out of here. In this case, this is actually, we're creating a table. We're creating a table called REST from README by ID, right? This is just an example. I'm going to replace everything that's here, and I'm going to replace it with exactly the text that was in this case. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to say execute. I'm going to click on this execute button. And if it all went well, I'll get a 201. Now, by the way, you're like, what's a 201? What does that mean? This is another really cool thing that Swagger does for us. Swagger is going to expose all of the different kind of response codes that we could have, so we know exactly what they are. This is really great for development. So the 201 says it's created. And notice that my response gives me the name of the table. So I know that my table has been created, right? And what would actually be fun is if I go back to my database. Now, if I went to the CQL console, you don't have to follow me on this. I'm just showing you something. All right, this will log me in. I'm going to use my to-dos key space. I'm going to take a look at my tables and take a look. See, in my database, I have a REST from README by ID table, right? So we actually just used the REST API with a create table command to now go ahead and create the table. All right, so hopefully I see, it looks like, oh, the key space value is to-dos. Yeah, key space is to-dos, exactly. If you got a 401, take a look, it's unauthorized. So that tells me that something is up with your key. Make sure when you copy the token, you're getting the one that says Astra CS, and in fact, copy Astra CS along with it. Yeah. Okay, so we have a table, but now we want to put some data in the table, right? So what we're going to do here is now I want to move down to my data section, right? So, oh, a trick, by the way, pro tip, copy your token because you're going to need it in a second. All right, so we created a table. Now let's go ahead and put some data in. So I'm going to open up data. Again, I want to add row, but don't forget we're using all v2. Here we go, add row, right? Add row. I want to say try it out, put my token in. And my key space name, again, is to-dos. That hasn't changed. Remember, that's the container of our tables. It's the to-dos key space. That's where all of our tables are going to be. Here's the table that we're using. We just created it, REST from README by ID. And now I want to add some row. Now, in this particular case, this is just some JSON that we're going to use to enter in data into our table. You know, we didn't really look at the details of the table that we created, but it has an ID field and it's got a completed field. If you think about it, for a to-do item, right, I need to identify it. I need to know is it completed or not, what's the text, so on and so forth. Oh, the homework, Dolph, you could, like, within a week. We just ask you to do it within a week. All right, now once I've done this, I'm going to hit execute. And I got my 201, and it gives me an ID. Okay, so now I just added a row to the table we created using REST again. Again, this is a REST endpoint. And in a moment, I'm going to show you how this links in together in code, right? We're going to put that together to get to end-to-end. But before I do that, I want to come back over to my console. Let's take a look. I just put something in this table, right? And there it is. To do from README. All right, that's the one that we just put in right there. So now, again, I've used this REST interface. Now, something I want to point out. At no point do I need drivers? Do I even have an application at this point? I can literally use the REST endpoints as my API to my database. This is now the interface to my database that I'm using. Oh, Hanjay, the Swagger URL, I can't actually share it. Why? Because it's specific to your database. So make sure when you are in your dashboard and you go to your database, you click on the detail page, go to connect, like you see here, REST API, and right here, the Swagger API. That is your Swagger UI. Yeah, so I can't actually share that one. You have to use yours. All right, now finally, last thing, I want to retrieve some values. Okay, so we created a table, we added a row, right? We saw that again here that we've actually done that in our database, but now I want to go and retrieve those. So again, I'm going to grab the token, and let's see, it should tell me I want to go in the data section again, and I want to retrieve all rows. Again, I want to use the V2 versions, right? So I'm in data, retrieve all rows. Here it is. Should look like this. This is NoSQL. Yeah, Computer Man, this is a NoSQL database. Cassandra is a NoSQL database. I can't enter the, oh, if you can't enter the parameter for the add row, ensure that on the top right-hand corner, you've clicked the try it out button. That's right. No, Orlando, Swagger is not a DataStax product. I want to say it's open source, it's out there, but it's not us. Yeah, it's actually something that we've implemented as part of Astra. Yeah, it's really cool. You can use it for your Java apps and all that. Yeah, Guha, this session will be this is recorded for later. Let's see. TLF makes a neat point. Jolly Jeepers, by the way, I love the fact that you said Jolly Jeepers. Jolly Jeepers. That seems like a lot of steps just to add some data. I'm guessing this would not be good for databases you are frequently modifying with lots of data. Or is this where you throw in some other code to automate adding, removing, modifying the tables? Yes. We are going to do that in a second. Swagger is not the way that I would do this for my app. This is the way that you kind of work out what that API is going to be like that you then use to implement your app. And I'm going to show you the implementation in your app here in a moment. So you're absolutely right. There's no way you would do this for like thousands or hundreds of things, right? That would be absurd. Okay, so I'm going to retrieve rows. Again, I'm putting in my token, and I'm going to use that same key space as we did before. Again, our table name, rest from memory by ID, the one we created, right? And then I'll hit execute. What I should see is the same value, that to do for me that we got from the database, right? So the whole point of this was just really showing, some examples, creating a table, adding a row, and then retrieving some of those values. So we did pretty much everything but an update and delete as far as CRUD goes using REST. Now, to TLF's point, though, this seems like a lot of steps. Am I really going to do this in my app? Again, this is a tool that's used to help figure out how you're going to interface with the database. There's some key pieces of information you're getting here. One, you know the type. I know it's a GET. Two, I can actually see the exact API, the REST endpoint that I need. I can also see what are the various fields that are available and such like that. And then I actually get, I see this whole thing being constructed. Here's a curl command for it, right? I mean, this is a development tool. So what I'm going to do next is, now this next spot, this launch Gitpod IDE, this opening Gitpod, that's for you to do on your own. That's for homework. What I've actually done is I've baked this for you. I got to reopen my workspace. Oh, darn, Gitpod timed out. Uh-oh. I'm sorry, I'll just start it up. Because here's this next part, when Gitpod comes back up, this is where I really want to show you the fun, right? And while that's loading, I'll actually just explain a couple things. When you go here through the next set of steps, launching Gitpod IDE, it is going to do the exact same thing, by the way, that you're seeing happen over here that I'm going to come back to. But when you get to this part, once your Gitpod is launched and you run this command right here, this is going to be the thing, this Astra setup. This is responsible for making the connection to your database, and it's going to generate a .env file for you. That is what our application is going to use, our to-do app is going to use for configuration to talk to the database, right? Matter of fact, how are we doing over here? Here it goes. All right, so it's going to take. All right, while that's loading, I'll just go ahead and load up my .env. So when you go through the steps and you're doing the homework and everything like that, you'll see here that the Astra setup command will generate this for you, right? These are all the things that I need to authenticate. Notice that token there, right? notice it has the name of the key space. It knows its region. This is actually being done for you by Astra Setup. Then what I'm going to do is, now mind you, I'm doing this real fast. This is for the homework because I want you to see this end to end. All right, I'm going to do this real quick.
You might need to zoom in on your Gitpod.
Oh,
for font size.
True. Yeah. All right. And this is the fun part. And by the way, while we're waiting for that to load, so somebody was asking about, okay, and I think TLF was, this is part of what you were asking. Now when I go to interface with my database, with my application, I can use the information that I just gleaned out of what we did here in Swagger, and I can use that in my actual app. So here's what I really want to point out. Let me go ahead and do this real quick. We're going to launch the app. All right, so this is me launching the app. Oh, Jason, I wonder if that's something odd in Safari with Swagger. I don't know on that one. Okay, so if you notice, I have a to-do app here, and I have a set of to-dos that are in. These are coming from the database, right? And again, these are coming from the credentials that we got from the Astra setup tool. Again, you'll do that part of the homework. But here's really what I want to point out. Notice this. Let me open this up a little bit. So check out. I'll just close this off so we can see it. Here we go. Check out this right here. So this function that we're in, this get rest to-dos, this is the function in our application that's being called to get the to-dos from the backend, from the database using our REST API, that then is responsible for essentially pushing. If you remember what Ryan was talking about with React and everything, you have components, you know, they can update dynamically and everything like that. Well, what's happening here is you're going to have something in React that's going to make a call to get REST to-dos. That is going to go over this REST endpoint right here. Notice this endpoint. Let's say, see, it's v2 key spaces, whatever the key space name, to-dos, right? The table name, in our case, this will be REST. And then we have a where clause. Because in this case, we're actually saying we want the to-do items where the key is a particular thing, right? But what I want to point out is notice this is this, right? Obviously, you notice the curly braces, key space name and table name is telling you to fill those out. Well, we did that down here, didn't we? Here's to-dos, here's REST, right? So we can use this tool to map out exactly what this is going to be. This is that endpoint. So when we say execute down here, and we're executing some command against this REST endpoint, that's exactly what we're doing in this code, right? And again, the cool thing is I don't need drivers or anything. I can literally just fetch this directly from the REST endpoint and talk directly to the database. All righty. How are we on questions, Ryan?
We're doing pretty good. There are a few questions on how to get the token, and I've been answering in text. Again, the instructions for doing that as well are in the GitHub repo. So you can go through that, you know, when you're doing the homework and stuff. You can just follow the repo.
So Sony Jose or Sony Josie, however you say that one, sorry. Can you share the .env file? No, I cannot share the .env file. Why? Because these credentials that are in the .env file are specific to my database. You don't ever want to share these, by the way. How do you get them? When you do step 7, in the homework, when you do this command right here, this Astra setup, this will generate the .env for you, right? You're going to run the command. It'll generate everything the .env for you. So that is specific to your particular application. Okay. Yes. And how is the token, Dahana J, how is the token added in the React.js call? So when you run Astra setup, by the way, Astra setup is just a helper script. You can normally, if I didn't have something like that, that's something we provide. Normally, I would build this env file myself. Now, one way you can do that, actually, if you come back to your database, there's a nice little, let's say I'm coding, if I go back to the Connect tab, and I'm coding in Node, right? It actually has all the instructions here. I'm sorry, yeah, if I was using the REST API, my bad. If I was going to use the REST API, right here, it actually gives these values to you. Now, if you're wondering where that token comes from, well, remember that page where I said, hey, you need to download these details? That's what I'm talking about. right? But all the rest of the stuff is given to you. So normally, if I didn't have a helper tool like Astra Setup, I would just create the .env file myself, and I would be plugging these things in. Then later on, you'll notice, let's see, I'm trying to think of where that actual code is for that one to pull that in. I want to say some utils API. Yeah, right. No, that's just that part. I'm trying to remember, Ryan, where the part that brings in the environment variables is. Here we go. Yeah, I knew I was there somewhere.
It would definitely be in the functions, in the serverless functions. So utils.
Oh, I'm missing utils. Duh. Here it is. Thank you, Ryan. I
Yep.
totally linked on utils. Yeah. So if you're curious where those are coming from, here we go. This is what I was looking for. So when we're establishing the connection to the database, right? There's this utils folder, this Astra REST client. Right here, notice the application token. So as part of setting up the connection to create the client, this process.env, that's where these are coming from. So process.env says, I want to get a variable from the .env file. And then notice that this value matches one of ones that's here, right? So when each of the serverless functions uses the REST client, as a matter of fact, if I look up here, I should have client. Yeah, you can see this get REST client, Astra REST client. So it's instantiating the connection in Astra REST client. And then that's where it passes those values. And then at that point, I can just say client got get and issue the REST, the REST endpoint here. So that's where that's actually coming from. Then from a React standpoint, the part of the code that is responsible for calling this, it's going to take the response from that and it's going to inject it right back into your page. And then that's when I'm over here in the to-do app and I'm doing things and say, I'm interacting with it. You can see the logs will give me something. This is now where that data is coming back from the REST endpoint, and it's being injected back into my DOM and such through React. Oh, Ajay, if your Gitpod terminal is unreadable, you know something? I don't know why. I've noticed lately in Brave in particular that the terminal is garbled sometimes. If I zoom in, if I change my zoom levels, sometimes it changes. But if I just go into Chrome or Firefox, it's not an issue. I don't know what happened with Brave recently. I use Brave all the time. So, okay. So anyway, with that, I would say if you want to get through that, then you're going to want to go ahead and finish off the homework and everything like that for yourself. But for now, I think we need to get over to the game.
Yes, the game.
Oh, and I want to answer one question
go for
before we do that. Orlando has a great question. If Astra is the database, what is Cassandra? So Astra is actually built on Apache Cassandra. Astra is DataStax's serverless, fully managed Cassandra. So like normal open source Apache Cassandra or something like that, you would have to actually build the database on your own and everything like that. In this case, we're using Astra to not only launch the database as you saw in like a couple of minutes, so you get a full Cassandra cluster and such like that, but it's serverless and elastic, meaning it'll scale up and down with you elastically. But then it also provides the APIs and stuff like that we've been using right out of the box, right? So that's what you're getting with Astra. That's part of what you're getting with Astra. So Astra is a fully managed cloud-based platform built on Apache Cassandra, which is the database. Hopefully that answers what you were looking for.
All right.
Oh, cool, Rahul. Good to see. All right. Now we'll go back over to Ryan for the game. Yeah, Cassandra, Apache Cassandra. Yeah, that's Cassandra is Apache. Yes, it's an Apache project. Yes. All right.
Get some
All right,
music
Ryan,
going. We're going to do
everyone ready for a game?
the Menti quiz. Now, this is a game. This is a quiz that we're going to do. The top 3 winners will receive some swag, and we ship worldwide. So it doesn't matter where you are. We can ship the swag to you. So if you want to join us, you can. I'm going to bring up I have to go to the right thing. I'll bring up a code here. You can also type !Menti or bang Menti in the chat, and it'll bring up the code. Or you can use the QR code if you want to use your phone. Now, something to note is because there's a delay in the stream, it's important to watch the tab that you have Menti open in or your phone that you have Menti open in to know when the questions come up and answer as quickly as possible, because speed matters. You get more points the faster that you answer. So menti.com, you can enter the code that you see on the screen. Let me see. Oops. See how many people we have. I think if I go to the next one, we get all the pictures. Yeah, here we go. Okay. We'll give it a little bit of time to make sure that everyone who wants to join can enter. If you hit the thumbs up in Menti, we can have some thumbs up on the screen, which is fun. All right. Just give one or two more minutes. Let's see if there's any. Does Menti auto refresh? It should auto refresh. I believe that is fine. Dun, dun, dun. Cool.
Oh, there's
now,
no. Did we take up the thumb? There's no. Hi, Nora.
There should be a thumbs up. All right, Nikita, if you type in !Menti in the YouTube chat, you'll see the code come up. Also, I'll bring up the screen. It's at the top of the screen as well. Oh, it's a little laggy. All right. There's no thumb this time. Oh, that's a bummer. Let's get started.
That's weird.
That is weird. Oh, it's probably because I went too far in the quiz. Sorry. All right, but we can get started. So there's going to be, I believe, 6 questions. Remember, watch your phone or watch the tab that you have Menti in to answer as quickly as possible. All right. First question. What is Astra DB? It is a local in-memory version of Cassandra. It is an integrated development environment, or IDE. It is Cassandra as a service in the cloud with APIs, or it's a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. All right. Yes, it is Cassandra as a service in the cloud with APIs. Congratulations. All right, let's check out our leaderboard. We can see who answered the fastest. Looks like Jon Snow
I would
answered the
watch it
fastest.
too, Simon.
Yeah, so don't worry if you are lower on the leaderboard. This game can change very quickly, and it's anyone's game all the way up.
Oh,
to the
Jon
end.
Snow. Oh, wow. Jon Snow's at the top there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Cedric is watching you. Uh-oh. Who could that be?
All right, question number 2. What does HTML stand for? Hippie markup to love, high trading machine learning, hypermarket to learn, or hypertext markup language? Right, yes, pretty much everyone got it correctly. Hypertext markup language. Let's see what our leaderboard looks like.
You know, I gotta say, our answers in that one are, I think they're a little obvious, even if you didn't know.
Yeah, I know. All right,
I know, I'm
Pankaj.
with you wanting more hippie markup. Love in the world there, Poke.
Congratulations, Pankaj, for the fastest answer, bringing them up to 4th place. Let's see what question 3 brings. What is the name of the package manager for Node? NPX, NPM, Netlify, or MVN? MVN. Remember, package manager for Node. Yes, NPM is the Node package manager. And NPX is the runner, the Node package runner. So that's the difference there. Let's see our leaderboard. Cedric is still watching us. All right. Baskarpal got fastest answer, is in 4th place. And Pakaj goes up to 3rd place. Awesome. Let's go to question number 4. We're halfway through.
Got kind of a battle here.
Yeah. What is CSS not used for? Style and formatting text, animations and transitions, page layout and organization, or to compile HTML? Which one is it not used for? Right, yes, compiling HTML is what it is not used for. Very good.
Oh yeah, don't
See
put
what-
the answers in the chat, please. Just in case. Menti.
All right, Pakaj gets the fastest answer and brings him up to 1st place. And AJ's in 2nd, and Baskarpal is in 3rd. All right. Question number 5. How does React organize source code? With React modules, with React components, with React divisions, or with React chapters? All right, yes. React components is the correct answer. Everyone got that correctly. I mean, is this suitable for web development? Yes, of course. That's what it is.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Andre with the fastest answer makes an appearance in the top 10. Pankaj maintains 1st place. It looks like there's been a couple of upsets. Let's see what the last question brings us. Question 6. Now remember, if you're in the top 3, you will win. And so get ready to screenshot your screen if you get in the top 3. What is the name of the object tree updated by JavaScript? The JOM, J-O-M, JavaScript Object Model. The ROM, Random Object Memory. The DOM, Document Object Model. Or the MOM. And we all need a mother. All right. Yes, the DOM, the Document Object Model, is the correct answer. All right, let's see our leaderboard. Now remember, if you are in the top 3, take a screenshot of your winning screen from Menti. And you're going to email that screenshot to Jack.Fryer. Congratulations, Pankaj, to our winner. AJ is in 2nd, and Rahul Bendrani is in 3rd place. Take a screenshot of this screen right here. And
Yeah, if you're top 3, take a screenshot right now.
Yeah, and so if you send your screenshot to jack.fryer@datastacks.com, you can see his email on the screen. He will contact you for all the information needed to send some swag. So congratulations to 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and for everyone who participated. Thank you so much for participating. Yeah, 17th out of like 120 is not bad.
That's pretty good, yeah.
All right. Cool. Let me, I believe we have, let's see, do we have this question? Yes, quick survey to help us. This is kind of open-ended question. I'll leave it up as we close out here. But what did you like the most and what should we improve? We're always looking to improve our workshops, make them more accessible and easier for people to digest and learn from. So why don't you answer that while we close out here?
For those of you who've ever been with us before in one of these workshops, you might notice that, you know, we tend to make little changes and try to evolve things. A lot of that comes from your feedback, so we do take that very seriously.
Yeah, Rahul asked, what are the goodies? What's the swag? I believe it's a t-shirt, a mug, and a pen. I'm not sure if it's...
Yeah, well, what's cool today is you can now, when you get your voucher for the swag, if you won, you get to choose.
Oh, do you?
Choose your swag.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a new system now, so
That's cool.
I'm hoping that's gonna be more fun. And there's more goodies coming, by the way. I mean, I actually like the shirts myself. I literally have a whole wardrobe of all these shirts. Oh, there it goes, Cedric. See? Yeah. Oh, there's porta backpack, pen, stickers, t-shirt. Yeah, cool.
So we have vouchers for our certification, for the Cassandra certification. If you want to get some of those vouchers, you can go to the link that you see on the screen. I'm also typing it in the chat. So you can go there and you can claim some vouchers. It'll be open for the next 15-20 minutes, I believe. And they're normally $145 each. They're valid for 3 months, valid for 2 attempts, and you can get your certification in administrator, developer, or Cassandra courses. Now, if you don't know what these are, if you go to datastacks.com/dev/certifications, you can get more information on what those are. You can also go to academy.datastacks.com, my apologies. And all of the coursework that is needed to go through to get these certifications is available for free at academy.datastacks.com. And so you can, if you're interested in learning more about Cassandra and getting certified in Cassandra, which will look great on a resume, you can do that and you can get your free voucher for 2 attempts, which is great. Homework. We have talked about doing homework all workshop. This is how you go about doing it. So the homework is specified in the GitHub repo. All the things that you need to do, it's not difficult. It's basically just going through the exact stuff that we went through today, taking some screenshots and uploading them to an issue on the GitHub repo. So this is the process. You go to issues at the top. You can create a new issue. Then you can use this template, a homework assignment template. You can click on the Get Started button. And then all of this stuff is pre-populated, and you can just fill out all of the pertinent information, your name, your email, your LinkedIn profile, and then all the screenshots for your homework. Now, to get a badge, you do the homework, you submit your screenshots, you'll get a badge. Your name, we need your name and your email to issue a badge. That's pretty much a requirement there. So that's why we ask for it. And we will grade the homework, and we actually manually do that. We take a look at every single submission, and we will let you know if any improvement needs to be made or whatnot. But we'll take a look at the screenshots and we'll approve them and issue the badge, and you can use it on different social media, like your LinkedIn profile or wherever you want to use it. So
and just to be sure that to get your badge, right? The homework itself to get your badge is in the repo, right? It's in the GitHub repo. There's a big section that says homework. Just follow the steps there you're going to need to create and complete the first Create React app that you saw Ryan do. You're going to need to have the Working To Do app that I was going through. And then the very last step of the homework is going to have a link in there that will create a GitHub issue. You just all you need is an image from the completion of both. 2 images. That's it. You put that in the issue. That will be enough to get your badge. We'll review them. Once we've approved it, once we've gone through it, then the badge will be issued right there in the issue. So everything you need is in the homework section of the repo.
Yep. All right. So what's coming up? If you go to datastacks.com/workshops, you can see all of the workshops that we have currently scheduled. But a few things that are coming up. We have a DataStacks France meetup hosted by Cedric, our very own Cedric. That is on the 10th of September. We also have next week the introduction to GraphQL. That is on the 15th, and I believe there's a repeat on the 16th. Yeah. And we also have Cassandra Day Australia and New Zealand on the 17th. So if you are in those areas, if you are in Australia or New Zealand, you can attend that and get to know some of the folks that are out in that region of the world, learn more about Cassandra, and just get connected with that community as well. And that's on the 17th. So those are the things that are coming up. Just wanted to give another quick plug for our Discord. If you go to dtsx.io/Discord, which we should probably have a command for, but you can join our Discord. Thank you everyone for asking questions in our YouTube chat. When the YouTube when the stream is done, the YouTube chat goes away and we can't address those questions. So if you have any more questions, go to Discord and ask them there, and we can answer those. We have lots of people, not just us that are active, but a bunch of other members of our community that are very knowledgeable and can help you out as you need it. Consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. We have all of our past workshops are recorded and available, and you can watch our backlog of all of our workshops, covering wide range of different topics from back end to front end to cloud based infrastructure. It's pretty comprehensive, and we regularly do repeats of these workshops. And so if you're looking for a live workshop of one of these, keep an eye on that datastacks.com/workshops to see when those are scheduled. And if you subscribe, you can get notified when we go live, and you can join us each week. We do it every single week, so it's a lot of content. All right, with that, thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you learned a lot and had a good time. Yeah, we hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week for our next workshop.
Absolutely. And don't forget, do your homework, earn your badges, brag
Yep.
about them on LinkedIn. All right, see you everybody. Thank you.
Yep, see ya.
And as always, don't forget to click that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notifications for all of our future upcoming workshops.
Imagine a being gifted with powers from the goddess of Cassandra, who grew those powers until she could multiply at will, move with limitless speed, and unmask hidden knowledge. With those powers, she was able to fully understand the connectedness of the world. What she saw was a world in need of understanding. From that day forward, she sought to bestow her powers on all who came into contact with her, empowering them to achieve wondrous feats.